She had everything a daughter could ever ask for. A beautiful home, expensive clothes, unlimited money, and a father who always said yes. She thought her life would stay that way forever. But one morning, her father took everything she depended on away and gave her something she had never had before: a job, a responsibility, and a lesson that would change her forever. But what happened next taught Emily that money could never give her what hard work could. Welcome to Lily Tale Talk English, where every story has a heart, a lesson, and a surprise waiting for you. As you enjoy the story, you'll also improve your English naturally through simple conversations and everyday vocabulary. So sit back, relax, and stay with me until the very end, because the ending may not be what you expect. Today's story is about Emily, a young woman who grew up believing that money could solve every problem. She never worried about bills, work, or the future because her father was always there to take care of her. But as Emily gets older, her father begins to realize that giving her everything may not be the best way to love her. Soon, Emily will have to step outside the comfortable life she has always known. She will meet people whose lives are very different from hers, face challenges she has never experienced, and slowly discover the true value of earning something with her own hands. And along the way, she will learn a lesson about family, responsibility, and the meaning of real success. Now, let's begin today's story. My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I believed I was lucky. I grew up in a beautiful house outside Boston. My father owned a successful construction company, and he worked hard to give our family a comfortable life. But I never understood how hard he worked. I only saw the results. If I wanted a new dress, Dad bought it. If I wanted a new phone, he gave me money. If my friends planned an expensive weekend trip, I never had to worry about the cost. I simply asked my father, and he almost always said yes. Because of that, I never learned how to live without money. I never had a real job. I never worried about bills. I never thought about saving for the future. I was 24 years old, but I still behaved like a teenager. Most mornings I woke up around 10. I would make coffee, sit on the sofa, and scroll through my phone. Sometimes I watched movies. Sometimes I went shopping. And sometimes I met my friends for lunch. My father never liked this lifestyle, but he rarely complained. He would only look at me quietly and say, "Emily, you are going to regret this one day." I always laughed. "Regret what, Dad?" He would point at me, living without a plan. I would smile and answer, "I have a plan." He would raise his eyebrows. "What plan?" I would laugh again, enjoying my life. He never laughed with me. At the time, I thought he was simply too serious. I did not understand him. Not yet. One Friday evening, my father came home earlier than usual. I was sitting in the kitchen with my laptop open in front of me. I had been looking at a designer handbag that cost more than most people earned in a month. When Dad walked in, I quickly turned the screen away. He noticed. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." He smiled slightly. "Emily," I sighed. "Okay, I found a bag I really like." "How much?" I told him. He became quiet. Then he asked, "Do you really need it?" I looked at him as if he had asked a strange question. "Of course not, I just want it." Dad slowly took off his coat. "That is exactly the problem." I frowned. What do you mean? He sat across from me. You are old enough to understand the difference between wanting something and earning something. I felt annoyed. Dad, I know you work hard, but you have always taken care of me. I know. Then why are we having this conversation? He looked at me for a few seconds. Because I may not always be here to take care of you. His words surprised me. I stopped smiling. What are you talking about? Nothing bad, he said. I am simply asking you to think about your future. I closed my laptop. I will think about it later. He shook his head. You always say later. I stood up. And you always worry too much. I walked away before he could answer. That night, I went out with my friends. We ate at an expensive restaurant and laughed for hours. I told them about my father's serious speech. One of my friends, Sarah, looked at me. Maybe your dad has a point. I laughed. Don't start. I'm serious, Emily. What will you do if he stops paying for everything? I smiled confidently. He won't. Sarah looked at me. You sound very sure. I am. I did not know how wrong I was. The next morning, my father woke me up at 7. I opened my eyes and looked at him in confusion. Dad, what's happening? Get dressed. Why? We're going somewhere. Where? You'll find out. I wanted to go back to sleep, but something in his voice told me not to argue. 20 minutes later, I was sitting beside him in the car. We drove for almost an hour. The beautiful houses disappeared. The expensive stores disappeared. Soon we were driving through an older part of the city. I looked out the window. Small shops stood along the streets. People were opening their businesses. A woman carried boxes into a bakery. A man cleaned the windows of a small restaurant. A young mother walked quickly with her little daughter. Everyone seemed busy. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to go. Dad stopped outside a small grocery store. Why are we here? I asked. He pointed toward the store. Look at that woman. An older woman was arranging fruit on a shelf. She starts work before sunrise, Dad said. She does this every day. I watched her for a moment. She looked tired, but she continued working. Dad started the car again. We drove a little farther. This time he stopped near a small cafe. A young man was carrying heavy boxes from a delivery truck. Look at him. I watched the man. He was sweating, but he kept working. Maybe he doesn't love his job, Dad said. Maybe he dreams of doing something else, but he still shows up every morning. I remained silent. Dad looked at me. You have never had to do that. His words hurt. But I knew they were true. He drove back onto the main road. For the first time, I looked carefully at the people around me. People were working everywhere. Driving buses, cleaning buildings, serving food, repairing cars, carrying boxes, taking care of children. They were not living easy lives, but they were building their lives one day at a time. I had never noticed them before. When we finally reached my father's office, I thought he would take me upstairs to his private office. Instead, he walked toward a small meeting room. I followed him. He closed the door. Emily, I have made a decision. My stomach tightened. What decision? You're going to work. I stared at him. What? You heard me? But I don't need a job. Dad looked directly into my eyes. That is why you need one. I felt angry. You cannot force me. No, he said calmly. I cannot force you to become responsible, but I can stop protecting you from the real world. I said nothing. He placed an envelope on the table. Inside was a simple job offer. Not for a manager. Not for an office position. It was an entry-level job at a company I had never heard of. I looked at him in disbelief. You want me to work there? Yes. Why not here? Because if you work for me, everyone will treat you differently. He paused. I want you to learn without your father's name helping you. I looked down at the paper. For the first time, I felt afraid. My comfortable life suddenly did not feel so comfortable anymore. Dad stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned around. Emily, I am not trying to punish you. Then what are you doing? He gave me a sad smile. I am trying to prepare you for a life where you cannot simply call Dad. Then he walked away. I remained alone in that room. I looked at the job offer again. A few weeks earlier, I had thought my biggest problem was choosing an expensive handbag. Now I was holding a job offer in my hands, and I had no idea that accepting it would change my entire life. The following Monday, my new life began. I stood in front of my closet for almost 20 minutes. For years, choosing what to wear had been easy. I always picked something expensive. That morning, I looked at my designer clothes and suddenly felt uncomfortable. I was not going to a fancy restaurant. I was not meeting my friends. I was going to work. Finally, I chose a simple shirt, black trousers, and comfortable shoes. When I walked downstairs, my father was already drinking coffee. He looked at me and smiled. You're ready. I nodded. I guess I am. He did not say anything else. We drove to the company where I would be working. It was a small office building on the other side of town. Nothing about it looked special. There was no beautiful entrance. No large sign with my father's name. No private parking space. I looked at the building and felt nervous. Dad parked the car. Remember, he said, I am not your father here. I looked at him. What does that mean? It means you are an employee like everyone else. I took a deep breath. Okay. He gave me a small smile. Good luck, Emily. Then he drove away. I stood outside for a moment. Part of me wanted to call him and tell him I had changed my mind. But I knew he would not come back. So I walked inside. A woman at the front desk looked up. Can I help you? I'm Emily Carter. I'm here for my first day. She checked a list. Second floor, room 204. Thank you. I walked upstairs. When I entered the office, I saw about 20 people working. Some were typing. Some were speaking on the phone. Others were checking papers. Nobody looked excited to be there. They were simply doing their jobs. A tall woman with short brown hair walked toward me. You must be Emily. Yes. I'm Rachel. I'll be training you. She handed me a notebook. Come with me. I followed her to a small desk. She pointed at the chair. Sit down. I sat. Then she placed a stack of papers on my desk. Your first job is simple. Check these forms and enter the information into the computer. I looked at the papers. How long will this take? Rachel looked at me. That's up to you. I started working. At first, I thought it would be easy, but after 30 minutes, I was already tired. There were numbers everywhere. Names, dates, addresses, small details that I had never cared about before. I made a mistake, then another one. Rachel came back and looked at my screen. You entered this number incorrectly. Oh, please fix it. I corrected it. A few minutes later, she found another mistake. Check your work before you submit it. I felt embarrassed. I will. She walked away. I looked around. Nobody was helping me. Nobody was treating me like my father's daughter. For the first time in my life, I had to solve a problem by myself. By noon, my stomach was growling. I looked at the clock. Finally, I opened my lunch bag. My father had packed it that morning. A sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water. I stared at it. Usually lunch meant a restaurant, a large meal, a nice drink, sometimes dessert. Now I was sitting at a small desk with a simple sandwich. I almost laughed. Then I looked around the room. Everyone was eating the same kind of simple lunch. A woman named Lisa sat beside me. She smiled. First day? Yes. How is it going? I looked at my papers. Honestly, terrible. She laughed. Don't worry. My first week was terrible too. You mean it gets easier? Eventually. We both smiled. Then she told me something I never expected. She said she had 2 children at home. She worked during the day and studied online at night because she wanted to get a better position. I looked at her in surprise. You study after work too? She nodded. I want my children to have more opportunities than I had. Her words stayed in my mind. I had everything I wanted, yet I had never worked for anything. Lisa had much less than I did, but she was working hard to build a better future. After lunch, I returned to my desk. This time I worked more carefully. I still made mistakes, but fewer than before. At around 4 o'clock, my back started hurting. I looked at the clock again. Only 1 hour left. I could not believe how slowly time was moving. At 5, Rachel came to my desk. Good. You finished everything. I smiled. Really? She checked my work. Most of it is correct. Most. It was not perfect. But I felt strangely proud. When I left the building that evening, I was exhausted. My feet hurt. My shoulders hurt. Even my eyes felt tired. But there was something else inside me. A small feeling of pride. I had worked for 8 hours. I had earned nothing yet. But I had done something I had never done before. I had worked for myself. When I reached home, I saw my father sitting in the living room. He looked at me. How was your first day? I dropped my bag on the chair. Hard. He smiled. Good. I stared at him. Good? Yes. I was too tired to argue. I went upstairs and took a shower. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked different. Not because my clothes had changed. Because something inside me had. The next morning was even harder. My body was still tired. When my alarm rang at 6:30, I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to sleep until 10. I wanted my old life back. But I remembered Lisa. I remembered the woman at the grocery store. I remembered the young man carrying those heavy boxes. And I remembered my father's words. So I got out of bed. For the first time, I did not wake up because I wanted to have fun. I woke up because I had somewhere to be. Days passed. Then weeks. Slowly, I became better at my job. I made fewer mistakes. I learned how to use the computer system. I learned how to speak professionally. I learned how to solve problems without asking someone to help me every 5 minutes. One afternoon, Rachel looked at my work. She nodded. Much better. Those 2 words made me smile. I had received expensive gifts from my father. I had eaten at beautiful restaurants. I had stayed in luxury hotels. But somehow those 2 simple words felt better. Because I had earned them. One evening, my father came to pick me up. He waited outside the building. When I got into the car, he looked at me. "You seem different." I smiled. "I am different." He did not ask anything else. He simply started driving. After a few minutes, I said, "Dad?" "Yes?" "I think I understand now." He glanced at me. "Understand what?" "Why you made me do this." He smiled. "I was hoping you would." I looked out the window. I thought money made life easy. And now? I thought for a moment. Now I think money only looks easy when you don't know how hard someone worked to earn it. My father said nothing, but I saw a smile on his face. For the first time, I was not proud because I had money. I was proud because I was learning how to earn my own way, and I still had a long way to go. 6 months had passed since the day my father changed my life. I was no longer the young woman who woke up at 10 and spent her days shopping. Work had become part of my life. I still had difficult days. Sometimes I made mistakes. Sometimes I came home tired. But I no longer hated those days. I had learned something important. Hard work did not make life smaller. It made life meaningful. One Monday morning, Rachel called me into her office. She closed the door and pointed to a chair. "Sit down, Emily." I sat nervously. "Did I do something wrong?" She smiled. "No. Actually, I wanted to tell you something." I waited. "We have an opening for a team assistant." I looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It means more responsibility." She paused. "And I think you're ready." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. 6 months earlier, I had struggled to complete simple forms. Now someone trusted me with more responsibility. "Why me?" I asked. Rachel smiled. "Because you kept trying." She leaned back in her chair. "You were not the best employee when you started, but you never gave up." Her words touched me. I thanked her. When I left her office, I felt proud. But I also thought about my father. I wanted to tell him. That evening, I waited for him at home. When he arrived, I ran to him. "Dad, I got promoted." He looked surprised. "Really?" I nodded. "Rachel offered me a new position." He smiled. "I knew you could do it." I laughed. "You never told me." "You weren't ready to hear it before." I understood what he meant. A year ago, if someone had offered me a promotion, I probably would have cared more about the salary than the responsibility. Now I cared about the chance to learn. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. My father asked me to visit his office. When I arrived, he was sitting behind his desk. There was a folder in front of him. He pushed it toward me. Open it. I opened the folder. Inside were some financial reports from his company. I looked at the pages. What is this? I want you to look at them. I read through the numbers. For the first time, I understood what I was seeing. Expenses, salaries, taxes, supplies, business costs. There were problems too. Some projects were losing money. Some customers had not paid on time. I looked at my father. Is the company okay? He nodded. It is, but running a business is never easy. I looked back at the papers. How do you manage all this? He smiled. Years of mistakes. I laughed. Then he became serious. Emily, I want you to understand something. I looked at him. One day this company may belong to you. My heart stopped for a moment. Me? Yes. I shook my head. I'm not ready. Not today. He smiled. But maybe one day. He closed the folder. I don't want to give you a company you don't understand. I want you to learn how to protect what you receive. His words stayed with me. From that day, I started spending more time learning about the business. I asked questions. I listened to meetings. I studied reports. I learned how difficult it was to keep a company running. Sometimes my father became impatient with me. Sometimes I became frustrated. But I kept learning. I also started changing my personal life. I stopped buying things simply because they were expensive. I started saving money. I helped my mother with household expenses. I even began donating some of my old clothes to a local charity. My friends noticed the change. One evening, Sarah asked me, "What happened to you?" I laughed. What do you mean? You used to spend money like it was nothing. I smiled. I used to think money was something you could never run out of. And now? Now I know better. She nodded. I like the new Emily. I smiled. So do I. A few months later, my father gave me another challenge. He asked me to manage a small project. It was not a huge project, but it was my first real responsibility. I was nervous. There were problems from the beginning. A supplier delivered the wrong materials. A customer complained about a delay. One of my team members made a mistake. For a moment, I wanted to call my father. I even picked up my phone. Then I stopped. I remembered the first day of my job. I remembered how helpless I had felt. I remembered how my father had told me that I could not always call him. So I put my phone down. I took a deep breath. Then I started solving the problems one by one. It took the whole day, but by evening everything was under control. When I told my father what happened, he smiled. You didn't call me. I almost did. But you didn't. I shook my head. No. He stood up and came toward me. Then he placed something in my hand. It was a small silver key. I looked at it. What is this? He smiled. The key to your new office. I stared at him. My own office? He nodded. You have earned it. I held the key tightly. It was small, but it felt heavier than anything I had ever held. Because I knew what it represented. Trust, responsibility, and a future I had finally started building myself. I looked at my father. Thank you. He put his hand on my shoulder. I didn't give you this because you are my daughter. I looked at him. I gave it to you because you worked for it. Those words meant everything to me. That night, I sat alone in my new office. The room was small. The desk was simple. There were no expensive decorations, but I loved it. Because I had earned my place there. I thought about the girl I used to be. The girl who believed money was everything. The girl who thought work was boring. The girl who believed her father would always solve every problem. I almost felt sorry for her. Then I smiled. Because she had finally learned. My father had not taken my comfortable life away from me. He had given me something much more valuable. He had taught me how to stand on my own. I no longer wanted a life where everything was given to me. I wanted a life I could build with my own hands. And for the first time, I was not afraid of the future. I was ready for it. Sometimes the easiest life is not always the best life. When everything comes easily, we may forget the value of effort, patience, and responsibility. Real growth often begins when we face challenges instead of running away from them. Money can give us comfort, but hard work gives us confidence. Success is not only about what we have, it is also about the person we become while working for it. Never be afraid of hard work. The things we earn through patience and effort often become the things we value the most. If you had everything you wanted because your parents always supported you, would you still choose to work hard and build a life of your own? Do you think parents should give their children an easy life, or should they teach them to become independent? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear your opinion. Thank you for watching Lily Tale Talk English. I hope today's story touched your heart and helped you improve your English in a simple and enjoyable way. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Until next time, keep learning, keep believing, and remember, every story has the power to change a life. See you in the next story.